They've changed their name to Industrial Distribution Services PLC. I had to check that because it's a mouthful. Amid news that they're going to be striking again over Christmas this time, in today's episode, we're going to take a look at the company formerly known as Royal Mail. Hey there guys, how's it going? Chris Chillingworth here. Welcome to the FTSE Show, episode number 61, I think we're on now. So it's been a little while, haven't done an episode for a little while. I've been busy working on a new website, on a new whole identity, I suppose, in terms of the work that I do, working with my existing subscribers and stuff like that. And yeah, working on a new website, a new course, new membership, all this kind of stuff. And I've also been working on a new YouTube show, which will, by the time this goes out, the YouTube show episode 4 will already be out. So check that out if you haven't done so yet. Before we dive into this company today, if you are enjoying the FTSE Show, if you're getting value from this series, do me a massive favour today. Hit a like on the like button. If you have time in your day, please leave a comment and say hi. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. It gives me, one, it tells me that you're out there. That's the first point. Secondly, it gives me the motivation to carry on with this series. I have been really umming and ahhing as to whether or not I want to continue the FTSE Show, and sometimes some of the comments that I get on the videos just make me want to do another video. Like, they're really supportive, and I really genuinely appreciate them. When somebody says that they watch every episode and they've gone back all the way to episode 1, and to think that they've watched 60 episodes of me, that's insane. But it's nice and it's awesome at the same time. So if you are willing and you have the time to like the video, comment, subscribe, that would be amazing. So today we're going to take a look at this company called Industrial Distribution Services, better known as Royal Mail. But they're not just Royal Mail anymore, and I'm going to change the way we do the FTSE Show a little bit today. I'm recording in here today because this just makes my life so much easier. I'm looking at it from a practical point of view, and if I want to bash out episodes as often as I'd like to, I need to make the whole recording, the whole editing, the whole thing easier for me to do. And trying to set up in a whole room specifically to do the show, it's just too much. I'm also going to start looking a bit more at the fundamentals as well as the financials. Now, here's the caveat here. I don't want to express any personal opinion as such on a stock, because I don't think that adds much value. Analysts all over the world will give you their opinion on what they think is going to happen with a stock. I don't care about any of that. I want to know the facts. The facts is where the meat and bones of making a decision lies. And so I'm going to keep it factual, but I want to look a bit more and explore a bit more into what's actually going on behind the scenes, not just the financials, although we will visit the financials. And we'll do the whole financials thing as usual. We'll even carry on scoring these companies at the end. So just a slight tweak to the show. I keep adjusting my mic because it doesn't feel right, but let's move on. So this is Royal Mail. They've changed their name to Industrial Distribution Services. They also have kind of two separate sections of their business. So there's the Royal Mail business, which is the UK postal delivery service, letters and parcels essentially. And they also have a marketing arm, which is kind of like the junk mail that you receive in your post. And they make a fair amount of money from junk mail. And they also have their international operations, which is run for a business called GLS. General Logistics Systems, I think they're called. Yeah. And that is an operation, that is an international operation, mostly parcel based. So back in 2013, this was the year before Royal Mail, as it was known then, it was Epic Code RMG, now IDS. They floated on the stock market in 2014. So we're going to 2013, the year before this. Something that has been a huge pattern and trend through looking through all of their annual reports over the last, essentially 9 years, 10 years, is that the volume of letters that Royal Mail is handling have just been dropping off the edge of a cliff. People are just not sending letters anymore. And at the time of looking at this in 2012, 63 million letters were being sent. That fell from 63 million in 2013 to 58 million. So it dropped off 5 million just in the year of 2013. And the board made the decision that they were going to lead a transition at Royal Mail to go from a letter handling company who also deal with parcels to a parcel handling company that also deal with letters. So they were changing their transition and their focus. This was back in 2013 to becoming a parcel company to be able to compete, because they could see where this was going, that people were sending fewer and fewer letters every single year. And they were even predicting a drop of about 6% a year. It's actually happened quicker than that. And you'll see that as we go through this. Back in 2013, they were achieving a revenue of 9.1 billion. This is a big business, a big company. When they floated, they went straight in on the FTSE 100. So this is a big entity. And like I say, they've got these two separate sections. So they've got Royal Mail, that at the time in 2013, their letters section were bringing in revenue of 4.7 billion. Their parcels 2.9 billion. So they were definitely letter focused in terms of that revenue. It's a huge chunk of their business coming in. And GLS, their international aspect of their delivery business, was 1.5 billion, so relatively small in comparison to the overall revenue of that business. And they spent about 600 million pounds in 2013 on investing in this transformation, because the problem with Royal Mail was all the underlying infrastructure at Royal Mail was letter focused, and they didn't have the infrastructure there to handle and be a predominant parcel based business. And so it's cost them around, I think we're looking at about $1 billion now that's been invested by the business in transforming Royal Mail into a parcel handling company from letters. So a lot of money has gone into this. They floated on the stock exchange in 2014, straight into the FTSE 100, and 15,000 Royal Mail employees purchased shares in the business. 700,000 members of the public bought shares in the first year that Royal Mail floated. This was a very, and still is, a extremely popular stock amongst UK investors. Revenue climbed in 2014 by 3% to 9.4 billion. The board put that down to parcel revenue growth. But however, profits were hit that year again due to another 250 million that had to be pumped into a management reorganisation and a transformation to become more of a parcel delivery service. So they're pumping £250 million in a year, if at least, to make this transition. This is a lot of the profits of this business are going pumped straight back into the business to allow it to survive, because they could see that in 10 years time it might not even exist, because if it's letters based and no one's sending letters anymore, they're kind of stuffed, they're kind of doomed. So they were having to pump all this money, all the profits from this business back into the company to not even to grow it, to transform it into a parcel handling business. So not great from an investment point of view, because where you want that profit to go is in expansion, in growth, not in transforming. But I suppose it's better to survive than to die. So it probably is the key thing that they should have been putting that money into. It's just, as an investor, you can see that company's not going to be going anywhere for a little while, because they're too busy trying to shore up the defences and survive. In 2015, revenue was pretty much flat, stayed at about 9.4 billion. Something that I did notice was that the employee numbers were dropping off quite considerably. They'd gone from 147,000 employees to 143. So you're looking at 4,000 jobs gone just in a year, despite the fact that revenue was flat. Addressed letter volumes, so again letters went down by another 4%, and the company decided that in an attempt to try and rekindle letters being sent by the UK public, they decided that they were going to improve public access to post boxes and install another 2,000 post boxes, the red post box that you see in the streets, by 2016. Personally, I think that was a terrible idea. But it's easy to say that in hindsight now that we see where the letters industry is and where that's gone, which we'll come to in a little while. Revenue continued to fall in 2016. It fell to 9.3 billion, so only by 1%. However, employee numbers then dropped to 139,000. So we've dropped off about 8,000 staff in the last 2 years. So that's something just to be mindful of. The fact that sometimes employee numbers going down isn't the end of the world. It's actually going to reduce costs, and that's generally why it's done on a business point of view. But if you have to if you're the way to make the company more profitable is to try and cut off all the staff, that's generally a bad sign that you're cutting jobs. It's not a sign of health, generally speaking. But it is possibly prudent business. The HM government owned a share in Royal Mail. I think it was about 15% of the total ownership of the business, and the government sold its shareholding in 2016. Letter volumes continued to decline by 3%, but Royal Mail was seeing parcels climb. And what that was doing was that was offsetting the decline in letters, which is perfect for what they were trying to achieve. They wanted to become a parcel handling business. They could see that letters was on the way out. And the decline the decline in revenue from less letters being handled was being made up for in the efforts they were putting into trying to grow their parcel handling aspect of their business. And GLS, the international side of their business, still making about 1.6 billion at this stage. So it had been the same in 2014, 2015, 2016. GLS wasn't really growing. It was just staying there at about 1.6 billion a year. Then in 2017, revenue took a bit of a jump and went up 5%. Letter volumes, however, fell down to 14.8 million. Remember, back in, 2013, we were talking about 50 odd million letters being sent. So by the time we had reached 2017, letter volumes had fallen to 14.8 million letters being handled. This is the company that you can send a letter and put a stamp on and send it, and Royal Mail will handle it based on this single fixed price stamp. The number of letters going through the system were dramatically falling every single year, down to 14.8 million in 2017. And so the revenue from letters was obviously falling to 3.2 billion. But again, parcels was kind of picking up a little bit and was offsetting that still at this stage. However, the reason why revenue went up 5% in 2017 was because of GLS. The international arm of their business jumped up 10% in revenue. And this was because of their parcel delivery business across Europe. So mainly increases in parcels across Germany, Italy and France. GLS also acquired a company called GSO, a regional next-day parcel delivery company in California, costing them $90 million. And they also acquired Postal Express in Washington for $13.3 million, a business-to-business overnight delivery business. So what's happening here in 2017 is that Royal Mail is one arm of this business, and GLS, the international aspect of this business, is the other arm. And GLS is growing. It's doing really well. In fact, GLS on its own would almost be an investor's dream. I mean, I'm looking at the growth of GLS, what this company are doing. They're acquiring other businesses. They're expanding into the US and in Europe. And everything that I read about GLS looks wonderful. But Royal Mail is not so good. And it's really the weak link in the whole group of industrial distribution services PLC, because with Royal Mail they're trying to keep this Royal Mail thing alive, and the letters aspect of it are dropping off like the edge of a cliff. People have just stopped sending letters, and it's really plummeted to hardly anything going through now. And so what we're seeing here is that the revenue from letters is falling, the revenue from parcels is climbing, but nowhere near as much. And so this company are kind of struggling a little bit. It's not an investor's dream, not like GLS. But the GLS aspect of this business is what's making industrial distribution services revenues climb. So as a group, it's not so bad. If it was just Royal Mail, it would be in a right old mess, I would say. So we get to 2018, revenue goes up by 2% to 10.1 billion, but the Royal Mail revenue is flat. Royal Mail revenue has not gone up. The letters revenue fell by 6%, but offset again by growth in parcels. So the letters revenue is now fallen to 3 billion. If we go back to 2013, the letters revenue was 3.6 billion. So it's now fallen to 3 billion. So we've lost 600 million in revenue in letters over the last few years. GLS revenue, however, climbs another 10%. And it's now at £2.5 billion. So GLS growth is exciting. It's doing really well. And this is largely put down to the fact that people are just buying more online across Europe. And GLS operating in emerging markets, so Romania, Slovakia, Hungary, countries like that, where a lot more online purchasing is now starting to happen. And so GLS are the one of the big deliverers of choice over there. Then we move to 2019, revenue climbs up 2% again to about 10.5 billion. Again, Royal Mail flat revenue, doesn't grow, still at 7.6 billion. It's not going down, but it's flat. It's not going anywhere. This is Royal Mail revenue, 7.6 billion. If we go back to 2013, Royal Mail's revenue in 2013 is 7.6 billion. So exactly the same. Their revenue has been flat for the last 6 years. It's not going anywhere. And this is a result of parcels going up and letters going down. And letters actually fell to 2.9 billion, the lowest since before 2004, I think they said. And again, that was another 5% drop. GLS revenue, the international arm of this business, climbed 8%, now at 2.9 billion. So the revenue growth for industrial distribution services is coming from strong growth in parcel deliveries, both in the UK and GLS. So parcels in the UK is what's keeping Royal Mail's revenue flat, because otherwise letters would be dragging it down big time, because the revenue from letters is constantly falling year on year. GLS acquires Dicom in Canada for 360 million Canadian dollars. This is a Canadian parcel company. And GLS announced that they're expanding further into emerging markets such as Croatia, Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, Romania, and Slovakia. And they've seen double-digit growth in all of these regions. So GLS as an investment look wonderful. Royal Mail are stagnant. They're not really going anywhere. They're not growing. 2020 then, revenue actually climbed 4% to 10.8 billion. Parcel volumes in the UK were declared as being lower than expected due to threats of industrial action by Royal Mail staff. So that stopped people wanting to send anything via Royal Mail because they were worried about the strikes. And also COVID-19 was impacting international import volumes. Revenue growth on parcels was largely due to price increases that year. The board announced that they expect Royal Mail to become materially loss-making by 2020-2021, which isn't a good thing to hear, is it? The board announced that the business was not as well placed as they would have liked it to be in order to handle parcels. This is a letter-based business that just wasn't set up to handle big parcels. And the transformation costs have caused significant financial pressures on the business. And they're not where they wanted to be by 2020. They were not in a position where they felt they needed to be. GLS performance actually went down because the business, because they found during COVID that businesses were scaling down their commercial activities. So let's just roll back. In 2013, the company were talking about handling addressed letters at volumes of 58 million a day. So I might have been saying a year earlier in this show, and I apologise for that because that's wrong. We're talking about a day, so 58 million a day. By 2020, this had fallen to 12 million a day. So that's a huge drop-off, incredible drop-off, that we're now only seeing 12 million letters a day going through Royal Mail compared to nearly 60, essentially 7 years prior. So that is an incredibly significant drop-off in customer behaviors because people aren't sending letters anymore. It's kind of crazy, right? We also saw that GLS revenues went up to 3.2 billion. So this is a company that's growing every single year. It's going up by several hundreds of million in terms of revenue. Then we skip over to 2021 then, and revenue takes a nice significant jump for the group up to 12.7 billion. And this was a result of obviously the COVID pandemic. Then we saw this like spike in many businesses before another drop off in 2022. The UK employee numbers were down to 137,000, so these numbers were still falling. Royal Mail's revenue, however, jumped from 7.7 billion to 8.6 billion, and this was nothing to do with letters. In fact, letters fell a significant number down to 9.5 million a day now at this point. So up until 2021, Royal Mail were reporting letters, marketing and parcels are separate in terms of the revenue that was coming into the business. They were breaking it down between the three. And then in 2021, obviously with the decline of letters happening pretty quickly, they then started reporting letters and parcels only. And I thought, well, where's marketing? Why has marketing disappeared? And what they started doing is they've incorporated marketing into letters. So the revenue that they get from marketing materials was being incorporated into the letters revenue to make the letters revenue look better. And if you didn't know what you were looking at, and if you hadn't been reading every single annual report, you wouldn't have realised that. And so actually what we're looking at in terms of revenue from letters, they reported 3.5 billion, but the letters revenue would have been about 2.5 billion. Because about 1 million was coming out of the marketing materials. So a bit cheeky there, and that's kind of behaviours I don't like to see as an investor. I don't like it when the annual report, which is supposed to report the company's performance to shareholders in a transparent way, they muddy the numbers to try and make it look a bit better. I hate that kind of stuff, and I'm very skeptical when that sort of thing starts to happen. It's not a good sign when companies are starting to do that sort of thing. But again, that is personal opinion. So I'm letting a little bit of personal opinion come out here. Parcels revenue, though, climbed 35%. So during COVID, what happened was people stopped sending letters, essentially, but were sending or were buying a lot more online, and that makes perfect sense, right? So they saw quite a spike in revenue from parcel deliveries. GLS saw their parcel delivery revenue go up 25%. So this was a worldwide kind of pattern of behavior with people. GLS staff climbed to 21,000 people. It was 14,000 in 2014. So whereas this Royal Mail arm are seeing employee numbers fall, GLS are seeing employee numbers rise. So again, that's another key metric that might give you an indication of what's going on in the group as a whole, but what's going on between the two businesses. Parcels now make up 71% of the group's revenue. So that's Royal Mail parcels and GLS parcels making up 71% of all revenue. So letters now making up a very small percentage of that revenue. GLS are growing their presence in the USA, or the USA now makes up 9% of all revenue for GLS. So, and they've got 71, by 2021, they had 71 hubs globally. That was 38 in 2014. Then we move into 2022. So the revenue stayed flat for 2022, first of all. They are opening a new state-of-the-art Northwest hub in Warrington in 2022. That should be open now already, where they're planning to be able to process 800,000 parcels a day, which isn't huge in the grand scheme of things. If we think that they were handling 58 million letters a day, and they're talking about this new state-of-the-art hub handling 800,000 parcels a day, but you know, it's something, and it shows a sign of intent of where this company planned to go. Obviously, they're focusing on parcel delivery, and they're trying to move away from letters. So letter volume by 2022 was down to 7.9 million a day. So we're still rapidly falling, and it gets to the point now where only 7.9 million letters a day are being sent or handled by Royal Mail, and that's quite a significant drop off. And we're finding that the revenue from letters is down to 2.5 billion, so it's still doing okay, but I expect we're going to be continuing to see this drop every year. GLS, on the other hand, saw revenues climb now to 4.2 billion. So GLS's revenue is now far surpassing that of letters and marketing, and it's the most exciting aspect of their business. GLS Germany saw a revenue growth. This is 2022. GLS saw Germany saw growth of 8%. Again, due to higher volumes. GLS France saw 9% increase. GLS Spain 8%. USA 11%, Canada saw a 17% rise, and GLS also acquired Rosenau Transport, a Canadian freight business. So, like I say, GLS are the exciting aspect of this whole thing. Royal Mail are dealing with strikes, consistent strikes, and they're having arguments with the union with regards to pay. The company offered a 2% pay increase plus a 2% salary bonus, but this was rejected in 2022 by the union. And so the threats of these strikes continue. Now, the strikes are a massive issue for Royal Mail, and here is why. Royal Mail are now announcing in literally in the last couple of months of recording this, back in November 2022, so last month, they announced that they're cutting 10,000 jobs, and this is due to financial losses caused by the strikes. This is what the board are reporting is the reason why they're having to cut 10,000 jobs, is because they've lost a huge amount of money due to the strikes. They're expecting an operating loss of 350 million in the next year. This could lead to 450 million if more industrial action is taking place. They've also had to axe their interim dividend because they can't afford to do it. The unions are saying that they're being kind of financially blackmailed, basically saying that they should be the staff should be getting paid more. And the company are saying, well, we can't pay you more because we're losing money because you keep striking. So they've got this is where they're getting stuck, basically. They're not able to move forward. As a result of this, the union has now declared that they're going to be striking on Black Friday, which has already been and gone. But they've now also announced strikes on the 9th, the 11th, the 14th, the 15th of December, and also the 23rd of December and Christmas Eve. So staff have agreed, the union staff have agreed they're going to be striking on Christmas Eve and all those other dates in December. The company have offered a 9% pay rise over 2 years, and that was rejected by the union. They then very recently in November offered a 9% pay rise over 18 months to the staff, and this was rejected on the 23rd of November by the union. So they're not getting anywhere, and Royal Mail said that's the last offer they're going to be making. So, and that's been rejected, so it looks like there's going to be more strikes over Christmas. That is Royal Mail's one of their most profitable times of year, which is why I guess those dates have been chosen by the strikers. I'm not going to get into the politics of any of this. Nothing to do with me. I don't understand what it could be like. I've got no idea. But from a factual point of view, that's going to hit Royal Mail in terms of profit significantly, I would say. Ofcom have done a report on Royal Mail as well. That's come out very recently, where they've said that the mail service performed by Royal Mail has reached a point where it is now well below expectations. Only 80% of its first class mail gets delivered within the time frame it's supposed to be delivered by. So there's 20% of all mail being sent is late, which is not the Royal Mail's typical performance levels. I've seen an article in the Financial Times today with regards to industrial distribution services talking about breaking apart the business and splitting GLS from Royal Mail, making them two separate entities. This is just purely my opinion. It's not factual in the slightest, but maybe this could signal the end of Royal Mail as we know it. It's strange that they're talking about separating the two businesses. If that does happen, what you want to be focused what I would want to be focusing on is GLS. Where is GLS going? Because GLS is the exciting aspect of this business. For me, Royal Mail is not exciting in the slightest, and it looks like it's peppered with a lot of problems that it's not going to necessarily be able to get through very easily. And it seems to be kind of dragging the overall business down, unfortunately. So let's take a look at the financials now before we look at the scoring for Industrial Distribution Services PLC. Okay, so Industrial Distribution Services PLC, they're now in the FTSE 250. So the Royal Mail, initially when they floated, were in the FTSE 100. This is a company that's now been demoted down into the FTSE 250. We can see revenue has been growing for this business. It's consistently been growing. It's been actually doing pretty well, to be fair. One of the big issues that this company has is the expenses level is just far too high. You're looking at 95% of all the profit coming in going on expenses. It's not going to leave hardly anything for profits. When you start taking away depreciation costs, interest that they're paying on debt, which they do carry, we're going to get down to the point where we've not got enough to really do anything exciting with the business. And this is a business that, where it is investing, it's investing into GLS. You can see all the acquisitions that we're seeing with this company are being done through GLS. It's GLS acquiring this, GLS acquiring that. It's not Royal Mail making any acquisitions. And the growing aspect of Industrial Distribution Services is all in GLS. Royal Mail, as an entity, is not growing. It's not going anywhere. We have omitted the gains based on the sale of assets. This is a company that's been selling off little chunks of its business here and there, making 89 million in 2020, 36 million in 2021, 72 million in 2022. And we omit that information, we omit those sales because that's not part of their business. That's nothing to do with the parcel delivery service that they do. That's just selling off chunks of their business, which isn't a sustainable practice. It's certainly not the recurring everyday business, so we omit that from the results. And so what the companies report as their profits, whilst accurate, that's not the figure we're looking at. We want to know what profits coming from the everyday recurring business that they do. And so my figures are different to that of the reported figures because we've taken these numbers out of it, these extraneous circumstances out of it, the additional income out of that whole process. And we can see this company has traditionally only been making on average about 3% net earnings a year. And that's with GLS's growth. So this is not a company that I would invest in personally. They're just not making enough profit to be exciting. If this was just GLS, I think I'd be far more interested in this company, and I think these results would look far more exciting. But what it looks like is that Royal Mail as an entity is dragging down Industrial Distribution Services PLC's results, making it not so favourable as an investment opportunity, unfortunately. Now, when it comes to the analysis of price of a stock, this is a different ballgame. And I spend a fair amount of time with my clients walking them through this concept because it's really important to understand. There is a difference between finding a great stock to invest in and the price being right for that stock. They are two separate things that you have to bear in mind when you're analysing stocks. Think of it this way. You find a wonderful house that you want to buy. You love this house. It ticks all your boxes. It has everything you need. It's in the perfect location. It's just right. However, the price is far higher. It's 30% more than you'd be willing to pay for that particular house. It therefore becomes a bad investment. It's not right for you. Yes, the house itself is perfect, but the price isn't right. And so therefore it's a bad investment. And if you think of it as an investor, the price has to be right. Otherwise it's a bad investment. And the same should apply to your stocks if you're investing in stocks. You might find a wonderful company that the underlying business looks fantastic and it's doing all the right things. Unfortunately, not on this occasion. IDS are not that company. But you might find a wonderful business that you love, but the share price, if it's too expensive, it's a bad investment. And so they're two separate things. Is the business the right business to invest in, first of all? and is the price right? Both have to apply, both have to be there for it to be a good deal. Now, with IDS, this is not a company I personally would rate as a great investment. I've found far better stocks than this. However, price-wise, this stock is a bargain. This is £2.26 per share. You're getting 61 pence per share on earnings. So if you were to buy all of the 956 million shares outstanding at £2.30 a share, the earnings you'll be getting on that represent about 18%. So you will get 18% return earnings per year on your investment. I don't care what investment you're invested in. If you're getting 18% a year return, that's fantastic. So what that's telling us is that the price right now is a bargain level. So this is a bargain. This is really cheap. Also, if you look at the 5.3 billion net asset value, so all the assets minus the liabilities, their net assets, 5.3 billion. If you divide that between the 956 million shares, you've got £5.58 net value per share. This is a £2.26 share, and you're getting £5.58 per share in net asset value. So that's a no-brainer in terms of price. What that's basically telling us is this is a wonderful price. And personally, based on my calculations and my analysis, if this was a wonderful company that I wanted to invest in, my limit, the most I would pay for this share would be £7.60 a share. So what that means is that I would be buying as much as I could of this company if they were the right stock. And that's the big problem here. They're not the right company. It's not the right business. There is a reason why this company is super cheap right now. And it's going to be a combination of the wider macroeconomic issues that we're currently going through in the markets, but also the wider issues that this company are facing right now with the strikes, with all the issues that they have, with the fact that letters are going down. And so this isn't a good investment under the bonnet. It's just incredibly cheap, and you're actually getting a lot for your money. So this is a stock that some of you might decide you want to take a risk on because it's so cheap and cheerful. But you've got to bear in mind that if you're going to take on a stock like this with this cheap price, you are inheriting the issues that come with this particular stock. So now it's time to score this company. Now, I looked at Royal Mail, if you remember, in episode 3 of the FTSE Show. This was back in 2019, but back then they scored a -14. In light of all of the new information, several years worth of growth, I've crunched the numbers, I've applied the algorithm, and the clean score that I now give IDS, the new entity, the new company that own Royal Mail and GLS, they've come through at a score of -9. So it's pretty much the same, unfortunately. And I think if we were just looking at Royal Mail, we would have seen a much lower minus number. I think the fact that GLS are part of this whole thing is boosting that score a little bit, because otherwise it would look far worse. GLS have been the success story here. We've seen revenue at GLS double in the last 10 years. They've done a great job of growing, but Royal Mail, unfortunately, have been struggling, and that has been the story of this entire thing, really. So with a clean score of -9, that would indicate that there are far better opportunities for me to invest my capital than in this company, and it's not a company I'm going to be investing in. It puts them way down on the leaderboard for season 2, and the clean score is a little bit better than it was in year 1, in season 1, but they're not really getting anywhere, and I don't suspect they will get anywhere, to be fair, because what we're going to see is letters continue to drop off. Eventually they're going to lose the vast majority of that revenue. They're going to have to make that up in growth in the parcels sector, which is a highly competitive sector. There are some businesses out there in the parcels industry already well established to handle parcels. Royal Mail struggling to transition from a letters company to a parcels company. They're having to pump billions into transformational costs to be able to do it. And GLS as a separate entity, far more exciting, but unfortunately unable to reach their full potential because of the issues and the costs of running Royal Mail, unfortunately. If they do decide to split two companies, then we'll revisit and we'll take a look and see whether or not GLS as a single entity might be a better investment. They may just be saying this in the press regards to the strike action. I honestly don't know, and I don't really want to get into the politics of it. But if it happens, and we'll take a look. If it doesn't happen, we may revisit this company in a few years' time to see if anything's changed, but I wouldn't suspect that will be the case. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching the show. I hope it's added some value, and I'll see you guys next week.